Hi, my name is Lainne, and I am an award winning spiritual psychology coach. And I'm
Hello,
excited to
sunshine,
share
good
a
to see you
soulful
again.
self
Had to
care
walk out to
conversation
let you
today.
back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're
Hey
under
everybody, it's Pearl with Women's Successful Living and the founder of our newly renamed show, Soulful Self-Care Conversations. And I'm so excited to have our special guest today. And that is going to be talking to us about all things self-care. But Lainne, I'm so excited to have you because when we talked before, she shared how she's captivated by self-mastery. She's driven by knowingness that she was meant for more and dedicated to actualizing her mission and leading others to do the same. And her passion is about innovation and dedicated to people who are self activated, taking action, and want to positively contribute to the evolution of humanity by following the legacy of love. She's an award winning spiritual psychology coach and best-selling author, leading edge healer, CEO, and very proud mama. Welcome to the show today, Lainey.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that beautiful intro.
You're welcome. So, one of the things that I love to do, and if you're new to the show, I want to say welcome and make sure you like and subscribe down below. If you're back listening to us because you just love us so much, we thank you for coming back. But if you know, one of the things we always like to do to open up the show is talk to the little girl within lady. So,
Hmm.
I always like to talk to her and have a conversation about when you were little, what were your aspirations that you wanted to be when you grew up? You know, many of us, like me, I wanted to be a teacher growing up. I thought I was going to be this elementary school teacher. I was going to teach all these beautiful little kids. And unfortunately, life led me differently because my parents and the school that I went to really didn't give me the guidance on how to do that next step. But funny thing is, my coaching has led me into teaching. And I sometimes joke that the kids I probably had at elementary school, they're of the age today that I'm coaching them today. So, in a lot of ways, what I wanted to do as a little girl, I'm doing today as this big adult pro. So, I would love to know what was it that you wanted to do as that little girl, and how does it correlate to what you're doing today?
Wow, that's so fun. I was just thinking, like, what was it that I wanted to do? Because I think it changed a lot, but what stayed the same was I always wanted to like be big. What I wanted to do was something like big, expansive, and I wanted to help people. And I'm definitely doing that. You know, the expansive part, always growing, expanding platforms, expanding my knowledge, the possibilities, and definitely helping people. And that has, morphed throughout the years too, the ways in which I help people. So it's fun to explore that and to look at like the child version as you were talking about that, and then the adult version and the experience of what that looks like, and to get to celebrate actually, oh, wait a minute, it is expansive, it is this, I am helping people, and isn't it wonderful that it's evolved throughout my life and will continue to.
Yeah, I think that's always so much fun to go back and look because oftentimes in our life we don't go back and look at the things that we did. The things when even just starting as that little girl, we don't look back about what did she want to do when she grew up, and what is she doing today about that? And maybe she's not doing what she wanted to do, and now is the time to step into that, to step into
Mhm.
leading a lot like what you were talking about. We talk about your bio about like leading that into what we're meant. We're meant for more. We're meant for more than, if you're what I don't like the word stay at home mom. I call it CEO mom because you are leading
Yeah,
a
I love that.
yeah, because I mean, right. Ladies, we're leading a household. I mean, it's a business to run a home, especially these days. I mean, life is so busy right now. And,
Mhm.
we come out of COVID and we're running these crazy busy lives again. And we're forgetting that during that time of COVID, most people found that I like to be home with my family. I like to spend that time, but I need to do something more for me. And so when we don't lean into that, it can lead to a life of like regrets and worry and wondering, gosh, I may not be here tomorrow. What legacy am I leaving? And I love that that's our conversation today is a lot around that. Like, you in coaching and what you do, and especially yourself finding out that, we're meant for more. We're meant to have this mission of what the path has already been set. I often love when I coach my clients. I'm like, well, what brings you joy? We talk about what's on your joy list, and they're like, a joy list. What's a joy list? And truly, the joy list is like, and then they laugh at me, kind of like what you did, ladies. Like they'll laugh at me, go, well, okay, I can give you 10 things that bring me joy. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's going to take you about 6 weeks to give me all 10 things because I want to know why. I want to dive into why they bring you joy. And you may give me the answer. I'm going to ask you for more. Right. And so as we do that, we start realizing I'm not doing the things on my list that bring me joy. I'm doing everything but that list. And so on your mission, on your journey, share with the audience, how did you finally like stepping into knowing and figuring out that you were meant for more, and that how did you start dedicating your mission to start stepping into what you were meant for?
I love that you're just talking about joy because, yeah, exactly that. Frustration. It was born of frustration. And I think that is something that many of us can really resonate with. It's like, always that like feeling of like, is this it? Like, is this it? There has to be more. Like, this isn't what I thought. This isn't what I had dreamed of. Or even sometimes when you are even living into what it is that you dreamed of, there's still that feeling of more. And I went from frustration, and I still visit it often, but I have a better relationship with frustration in that I understand that it's just asking something of me. It doesn't mean that I'm never going to get there, or even that I'm not there. It's just asking something different of me. So creating a different relationship with frustration led me more into that idea and of joy and playfulness. And I still get to do more of that because there isn't enough of that, exactly as you were talking about. As shifting into my own joy list, like, and gratitude. Gratitude is a big point of joy, or it relates a lot to joy to me. It's easier to find things to be grateful for when you have a joyful heart, and vice versa. And so, stepping into my bigger mission is something that I realized for myself, anyways. And I know it's going to look different for everybody else, but it's good to contemplate that your mission can constantly be changing, and that feeling of more is an awesome thing, because that's the whole point of being here, is going back to my childhood self, like that expansiveness, because we're always expanding. Now you've probably heard before, you're expanding or you're contracting. That's just the way life is, the way the energy works. So when you're having that feeling like I was meant for more, amazing. That's the cue that you're meant to expand right now. And when you can shift your relationship with that, then that helps to diminish or dissolve or transmute that sense of frustration and bring in more joy.
You just unpack so much there. I love too, but oftentimes we think, is this it? Like, I think for a lot of people, that's when it sort of starts to realize that, oh my gosh, is this it? This all the life is going to be about? Like, there has to be more, and there is more. I think a lot of people forget to tune into it. Like, they forget to listen to what's inside that emotion that's in there of, like trusting that in your gut, you know what it is, but now you've got to do the work. Like, what brings you joy, but to say to somebody else, especially I'm an overcoming people pleasing addict. And to think to myself when I started on this journey of overcoming that, to think I'm going to tell that person I can't do, or I don't want to, or whatever the no needed to be, to tell that person really freaked me out, because I was like, oh, all the emotions, like they're not going to like me and so forth. But as I did that, like that's where the acronym for me, the Shiro, came from. Is as I did that, I became and understood that I can be stronger in the word no, because really it wasn't no to, anybody other to them. It was a yes to me. And then that emotion felt good to know that I'm doing something for me and not always showing up for somebody else. And oftentimes too, I would hear, well, I'm always doing for that person. And when I come ask that person, there's nothing in return, right? Oh, they can't help me. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So for me, that's where, as I started stepping into going, the thought, like you said, there has to be more. I knew there was more. I feel like we all know there's more. We just don't tap into it
Yeah.
because we're afraid of what the emotion's going to be. And that's what holds us back. Would you agree?
Yeah, but that's the beautiful part, and that's the whole puzzle. When you're trying to figure it out, that is what the answer is leaning into whatever the discomfort is that you're trying to avoid feeling. And the more that we actually learn about our own systems and how to navigate ourselves, because we are not taught that at all. We're not taught that your feelings is just the cue for the next thing that actually you have to deal with, not to avoid, suppress, or repress, or make yourself wrong, whatever it is, all the other things that we do with our emotions. It's just, no, this feeling's coming up. Oh, I'm meant to actually feel it. Sit with it, name it, acknowledge it, so that I can understand what that the message is. And sometimes the message is surprising. Sometimes it's something like really, really deep and profound. Sometimes it's something like surface and really easy to let go. And that's like the next step or the next level is learning what it means. But that's even just more for curiosity's sake. We don't even necessarily need to go that extra step further. We just need to acknowledge the emotion, let ourselves feel it so we can let it go, and then figure out what our next step is.
And I think that goes along with where I come into the H for share up for happy, because I think, like you said, when we start letting go and understanding
Mhm.
those emotions, that's when we can release that stress, the stress of all those things that are holding us back, and enjoying life, and you know, and stepping into the more of life, like to step in and to understand that I do get to have more, and it's up to me to step into it. And as we
Mhm.
do that, I find that, especially when I work with my clients, they definitely become, they're happier. They're not waking up 2 o'clock in the morning and they're not, going, I forgot to send that email, or I forgot to respond to that person, or I forgot to make lunch for my kids tomorrow, right? They're not,
Yeah.
they're not worrying about it. They're like, it can get done. It's going to get done when it's supposed to get done. And, that's how it's supposed to be. And, I think by doing that, that's where you release the stress and you do find that happiness. One of the things that you also talk about is, innovation, like the passionate, being passionate about innovation, dedicated to self-activating ourselves, and taking action. Oftentimes taking action is scary in itself as well, right?
Mhm.
So what do you say to that client that you're working with that's afraid to take that action? Like, how do you help them step into that?
Meet the fear. Meet the fear. Yeah. So if you're afraid, then great, awesome. Then fear has some wisdom for you. And so you just sit with it, and then you acknowledge it, and you let it go, transmute it, and look at whether or not it's an ancestral pattern, whether or not it's something that you've learned from an experience within this life, whether it's even a collective experience. It's a really cool thing is how nuanced all of these cues and energetic frequencies can be in patterns. And that's what I love. I love to, wow, this is so interesting. It could be this, or this. And what am I transmuting? And for how many generations, or for how big of a population? And that's where we go back to also how much you matter and how much your mission matters. And that just by working on yourself and transmuting that emotion, and working at that one thing that you think is so big for you, you're actually helping to facilitate change all around you, as well as you continue to work on yourself. So that's, such an important and big contribution that you make to the world.
And you bring up a good point too. You talk about generational things that can happen. A lot of times, there is for many people generational stuff
Mhm.
we carry through. You reminded me of, I was away this past weekend with one of my clients, and she was holding her first event. So I went to go support her in her events. And one of the things that I've heard her say, because we always meet on Zoom, but this time I was in person with her, and I thought, we're going to do our coaching session together in person. And one of the things that she was holding on to was all this generational things that she was being told. You're not worthy.
Mhm.
You're not smart enough. Why are you going to do that? All these things. And I could keep hearing her say, and as we were coach, I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. And I would be like, why? And finally, I was sitting across from her, and her amazing husband was there. And I said, I'm going to do something in front of your hubby. And if you don't want him here, tell him to leave now, because we're going to get deep. And what I did was we walked through those emotions, and I actually, Lainey, I made her go sit in another room. And she's like, I don't know if I can
Mm.
do it today. I'm like, no, no, you have to do it today, because you think you can't do it today. You must do it today, because you're
Exactly.
trying to avoid it, right? And I made her go sit in a room for like an hour. And I'm like, I want you to write everything anybody told you that's holding you back, anything that you've told yourself, any emotions you've kept from yourself. I'm not worthy, I'm not smart enough, whatever those emotions are. Somebody told you, that you can't do it or whatever. I want you to write it down on a piece of paper. I want you to tear it up. We grabbed a mason jar that she had at her house. And I said, I want you to take a picture of it as you write it. I want you to send me a picture of it as you put it into this mason jar. And then I was writing statements for her as she sent them to me. I had a piece of paper. I was writing a different statement for her to know and understand that there's a positive side. She's the opposite of everything she was writing. And so she came upstairs after about an hour, and she's like, oh my gosh, it was so heavy, so hard, but so releasing too. So it's winter time right now, and we're recording this, and it was very cold in the state we were at. There was snow on the ground, and we went outside, and I put the mason jar in a big bag. And what I did was I made her read out loud the positive statements, like, so the neighbors 3 doors down could hear her. And as she did that, I had her pound out that mason jar, right? Like beat up that mason jar to get rid of the negative emotion. And, and it was it was, for me, it was great, but I know for her, it was so releasing. I mean, she released all the emotions and everything that came along with it. And, I think for us to, like you were saying, to us to like learn to self-activate, for us to take action, to, start to like live that legacy of love for ourselves first, we have to get rid of and release those generational things that are holding us back.
Yeah.
I know for me, my people pleasing came in when I was in third grade, because my dad was off at work, my mom had to work, and it was like, you have to take care of your brother or sister when you get home. So a very young age, so I was always under the thought that I had to take care of people. And so as I released that, I mean, it took me forever. I mean, it's only been 10 years that I've really started working on releasing people pleasing, and I'm 60 years old now. So it took me till 50 years old to figure this out, right? But it's never too late. And so when you're working with your clients and, holding that back, letting those generational things hold us back. I think sometimes we talked about fear before, right? I think sometimes we're scared to face that emotion, because it means that we have to maybe relive or revisit some things from our childhood. However, that when we can do that, we really start understanding that the false evidence appearing real is truly is a true statement, that we have to understand that that's not what has to define us. That doesn't have to tell us this is who you are today, right? And
Yeah.
like I love when you talk about having by leaving a legacy of love, and I want to talk more about that in a second. But so when you work with your clients, you're helping them address this generational stuff. Like the person that I know, I run into a couple of my clients who don't want to address it, that they don't want to face it, right? And they have to do it on their time, because you can't force it, right? It's not going to work if you force it. But how do you help your clients like to step into that and start understanding that as you release that, you can truly live, have that legacy of love for yourself?
It doesn't have to be uncomfortable, and you don't have to remember past things in order to let things go. And so then if there's resistance, then that's all you do is just start with the resistance. I mean, the steps are actually quite simple. The hard part is getting over past ourselves. It's always you against you every day. And there are a million tools. Like we all know, how to lose weight by this point, right? We can go online. There's been enough things. We all know the formula. It's not the lack of information that we don't do certain things that help us to achieve our goals or are good or healthy for us. It's getting past ourselves. So it's something within me. If I make the decision, like I want to do this, and then I keep not doing it. Well, it's not because I don't want to. I have to look at like the why not. So, well, I don't have to, but if I'm really committed to achieving that, and I keep noticing that I want it, and yet I'm not receiving it, allowing it, accepting it, achieving it, whatever word you want to use, then meeting that with a different sense of self instead of like, I'm never going to get there. It's frustrating or whiny or whatever, all the different language that we've had. And I say all the ones that I've said to myself, you know, why me? Why this over and over and over again? Like, that's fine. That's a starting place. But then it's like looking at, well, okay, why you? You can examine every single statement. There's something behind that, and there's something for you to let go of behind each statement. So you don't necessarily have to go back and revisit something that's really heavy or really uncomfortable or really traumatic in order to free yourself of that pattern in real time.
And I think that that kind of leads me to like the E in Shiro, empowered. I think by doing those things, I think we start becoming empowered to know that we don't have to let those things define us, right? As we walk
Yeah.
into them, they don't have to define us. And then we can be empowered to do these things that we want to do, whether it's something like you and I are doing, you go teach or coach, whether it's,
Yeah.
have a podcast, write a book about it, or just be empowered to do something different in your life. And that maybe you've been sort of sitting on a shelf and you haven't been doing it. It could be a new career or a business, whatever that is. I think that's the beauty is that as we start addressing and we step into some of these things that hold us back, the empowerment starts to take over and that we know we can do the work and we know it's not gonna hurt us. It's gonna be, there'll be some emotions behind it, but at the end of the day, we're gonna come out the other side going, I'm so glad I addressed that because you're gonna, have like a backpack release off your back for yourself and have a different way of addressing some things in your life as you move forward. And I love that you remind us that we have to get past ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We hold ourselves back so often because we tell us all these things that just aren't factual. And, I like to sometimes equate it, when we say get past ourselves, sometimes we think, oh, I believe that the path has already been decided for us when we come into this world. Like it's already been mapped out, but we think, oh, I think I'll go this turn because it might be a better path. But in reality, if you stay on the right path, you're meant to go through the things you're going to go through and you're going to come out, you're going to learn from them. But when we go off a different way, sometimes we're like, darn it, I wish I would have just stayed on the right road. It would have been faster. It would have been easier or whatever. It would have been felt differently. So I love that you shared us that, we matter and we do have to get past ourselves for sure. Yeah, definitely. Also talk about, I want to go, I love your bio because it exudes like all the emotions that in our life we want to live. And, leaving that, I want to talk about like, evolution of humanity by leaving a legacy of love, leaving a legacy of love. Like for me, I'm a mom who, have two beautiful boys, one of which I lost. It'll be 3 years. I can't believe I'm saying it's going to be 3 years this July that we lost our oldest son in a tragic car accident at 25. And, this past January, our youngest one turned 25. So I walked into the month going, I'll be okay. It's going to feel different having my youngest one not be the same age as my oldest one. And, I was like, I think I've got this. I kept telling her, oh, yeah. And then as the month went by, I was like, I realized things that I did not do and things I did not accomplish was because of the emotion of not walking into that and addressing the emotion of how I was feeling. And so I promised myself going forward, I have to let the feelings feel. Don't just say it's okay. Because for me,
Yeah.
that was a legacy that I saw, that my son Matt saw and my son Nate sees is that I was such a people pleaser that you could ask me to do anything and I would have done it for you. And 2 days before Matt passed, he was here at our house and he was like, hey mom, can you send me a bottle of water? And I was like, sure. And I chucked the bottle of water across and I'll never forget. He said, wow, not only have you figured out who the heck you are, but you could finally throw something. Cause I was terrible at throwing football. I could not throw a football for the life of me. I could hit a soccer ball because I played soccer, but no football. And so I have that memory of him if that's the last memory he had of me leaving when he left this world was that I put myself first and I finally figured out what I am. For me, that's my legacy. Like that's the legacy I want to leave and that legacy of love. And, I take that story and I use it and I share it with my clients. And if you're listening to us today, I really want you to listen to this part really deeply. And that is that if tomorrow is not here because for some reason it's our time to go, and all your family and friends can say is what they saw you do for yourself, not all the things you did for others, not all the titles you did for others. All they saw is a legacy you did for yourself. And what are they going to say? And if 5 to 10 people can't say something different, you definitely need to start working on that because they need to be able to stand up there and say they saw you go on a staycation, they saw you go for walks, they saw you, take time out and journal, they saw you say no to things that people could ask you to do because that old adage, you got to fill your cup first. I truly believe you have to overflow your cup first so that you can show up the way you want to for others. And so when you talk about, like the evolution of humanity by leaving a legacy of love, I think that for me, that says so much in there because I want to know how myself, I always look at how am I leaving my legacy of love? I've been with my husband for 40 years. How am I leaving him a legacy of our love together? And I want my clients to know that. I want those that are listening to know that you need to love yourself first. That's your first legacy that you have to do. But help us unpack that a little bit more, if you will, lady.
Yeah, I was just really touched by what you were sharing and just taking a moment and acknowledging you and your family and that and celebrating his life. Yeah, that is love right there.
Yeah, thank
That's
you
that's
both.
part of the legacy. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we're all here. Yeah, it definitely is how we show up for ourselves. That's part of our legacy. Absolutely. And and how we show up in the world. And that has to do with how we treat others. And when I say others, that's like a big blanket statement, not only other people, but the the whole world around you. We are responsible for our energetic interactions. What do we leave in the room behind us? We say, oh, it doesn't even matter. But it matters. It matters. When you walk into a room, sometimes you walk into a room and you're like, oh, it feels so good in here. I just love this room. Or sometimes you walk into a room and you're like, ooh, just no thanks. You walk in and you walk out. Those are imprints. And those imprints don't happen by accident. That's also a part of your legacy. So how do you show up for yourself? How do you show up for every single person that you come in contact with? It feels like a really big responsibility, but you're capable. You're capable of being conscious. You're capable of being kind. You're capable of thinking about the imprint that you're leaving in every room, every tree, every animal, every moment. And if we start to really think about our days and our moments more often in that way, then again, that creates a wonderful ripple effect and helps to facilitate and accelerate a change and in how we're interacting with the world and what the world can become at an accelerated rate. If we're, so yes, first and foremost, yourself. And then everything else is kind of second, and it's a big long list, but it's beautiful. And going back to your word empowerment, it's very, very empowering. And to meet yourself and to contemplate yourself as such a big, expansive person is really, really empowering as well.
And I like to keep circling. And okay, you guys, we didn't even talk about this ahead of time, but this is so cool how this conversation is going today. I love that's why I call these soulful self care conversations because the empowerment. And you talk about walking in a room and like the radiance. I call the R in Shiro is your radiant glow up. How do you walk into the room? So we did not set this up, you guys, but the radiant glow up. And like you said, it like if a room doesn't make you feel radiant, doesn't glow you up inside, it's a room you need to get out of because it's you'll leave the imprint there, but maybe it's not a room that serves you either. And so having, that imprint of what you want to leave and how do you want to be remembered. I remembered when I started on my journey of overcoming people pleasing, this is why this show came out, because one of the things I found is as I started saying no to others, I was becoming stronger and saying no. I was happier because I wasn't doing for everybody else. I became empowered to do the things like a podcast and writing books and things like that. But I started walking into rooms and people are like, what's so different about you? Like, did you color your hair? Did you cut your hair? Did you lose weight? No, it's just like I finally was like going, I need to do for me. I need to figure out what's that legacy of my love I want to leave. And so that's what I'm walking into now. And, and to step into that, it's so empowering, as you were saying. And it's truly, to me, it's like, truly a gift to ourselves when we can say, I'm putting myself first. Because if you're listening and you have, littles at home and you want to spend more time with them, but you're like, oh my God, I got to do this project, that project. Self-care doesn't mean that you can't spend time with your little ones or your kids or your spouse or friends or whatever. It's how you do that. I mean, self-care can be as simple as sitting down and watching a silly cartoon with your kids or watching a movie with your
Mhm.
spouse. It can be any of those things, and that's part of the legacy too that you can leave behind. It's like your kids are going to remember, oh, I remember when. I remember we did this. My friend that I was with this weekend, she loves to dance with her granddaughters. And she's like, I'm going to be remembered by them as that grandma that let them sit on the counter and twerk. I'm like, I love it. I think it's just so cool. So, it's like having those sweet memory, those moments is so, so, so important. And which leads me to, like as we said, like going back to the little girl, like what are we doing today that sort of correlates to her? And I always say for me, it's like the teaching. I want to be that teacher, and so I am doing that today, just doing it differently. So I look at it
Mhm.
as I'm being that original self that I want it to be in my life. And so when you think about those things, as we're kind of coming down to our time, walk us through like when you have when we talk about the legacy of love, the evolution and everything, what if you are sitting and you're listening to us right now and you're struggling to understand like how does somebody do this? Like if you're listening to us right now and you're like, this all sounds great, but where do I start? Like where's the first place which you would suggest somebody starts at?
Yeah, I definitely understand that. It was a big frustration for me. It's like, yeah, this all sounds great, and right, where do you start? I mean, it depends where you are, but first of all, you start where you are, and I think that most of us are waiting for like this big grand, like, ta-da! It's here. I did it. It's happening. But in reality, is all the dogs are barking. If you can hear them, in reality, it's a smaller shift and change. So, starting, even going back to that example of being with your children, like as a single parent who's very, very busy, sometimes I have a lot of time, sometimes I don't, but I like to always either take the time or make the explanation. So I will say to my son, you know what, I have a lot of things to do and you're really important. So I'd like to do this and be here present with you for 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes. Let's put the timer on because I always have 5 minutes for you. And sometimes I'm like, you know what, I don't right now. And then I'll say, you're really important. And having a house to live in is important. Having food to eat is important also. And so right now I have to do this because those things are also important. And it's not diminishing or minimizing your importance. It's recognizing that there are a lot of things that go into life. And so I actually talk to my son that way. So it's a really great place to start is just being honest and authentic. And then instead of feeling the inner frustration, well, I have all of this and I can't do this. All those things are true, but it also could be true that you have all of those things and you can just be meeting it a little bit differently. Or you meet it that way, your regular way or your way of frustration. And then at least afterwards, you're even able to say, "Oh, I didn't do it how I wanted to do it. All right, let's unpack that. Let's recognize that I didn't show up how I wanted to show up. I've been practicing doing this and I didn't do that. Well, it's okay. Every time I recognize, I change a pattern. Every time I recognize, I'm getting better and better every single day. So a good place to start is just 1% better every single day. A good place to start is being honest with yourself. A good place to start is taking responsibility because most of us are out of practice of doing that. It's that fault. It's their fault. It's them. No, it's you. It's you every single time. And that's a really wonderful, amazing place to be when you can recognize, no, it's me. No, they didn't do that. They did whatever they did, and you reacted however you reacted because of you and because of all of your ancestral things and all of your societal things and all of your current life things. And that's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful because once you can admit that, you can take responsibility and you can start to take the next corrective action steps. And that gets you to where you want to be a whole lot faster.
Those are so the great thing is like I like the 1% better, the honest, and then I love the example you gave of how, I often talk on here how we talk to our kids can make a big impact. And I love the example you gave of explaining them, that, the whole 5 minutes part, I have 5 minutes for you, you're important. And like our house having a roof over it, those are important things too, because we forget that what often we hear that kids hear is, I have to pay the bills. I have to do this.
Mhm.
But if you can sit down, like you're just explaining and have a conversation that, you're important and I need to go do these things because these things that help us stay here are important too. Right. And so
Yes.
having a conversation. And I think what's great about that is, and as you're listening to us, start this now. I think it's important we start this with our kids when they're really little too, because then they'll grow up and they'll understand it. They'll get an understanding. Oh, mom or dads are at work. It doesn't mean that they don't love me. It's because we have these other things we have to do as well, and I think, and you have conversations, and I know it's different than like when I grew up, that's why when we talk about generational, I truly believe
Mhm.
generational because, I grew up in a house where my granny took care of everybody. She didn't work. Everything was taken care of. You came home, food, the whole 9 yards was done. Then my mom's generation was like, that was when Vietnam War was going on. And many women, if your spouse was in the war, you didn't get to stay on base. You got kicked off a base. So then you're going stay with family or here or there, and you got kids. And so they're working and trying to manage a family at the same time. And then really, no identity. I was shocked to hear recently that when I was 10 years old, that was the age that I was when women first could buy a credit card and buy a house. I was
I know.
like,
It's
that
crazy.
blew my mind away. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I never realized that." So to think that my mom was in that generation, then here my generation's like, we want everything. We want the house, we want the kids, we want the spouse, but we want to have our career and our time too. And like, I feel for me, I mean, I'm 60 to figure out how to balance all that is like so important. And now this generation, I don't really know too many people in the generation a little bit younger than me, but the whole idea of how to mesh that all together so that you can leave that legacy of love and also a legacy of love for yourself. It can be very overwhelming. And that's why having people like you and me, people that can, a coach or a mentor, so if you're listening to us, find somebody that can help guide you through this is really, really important. Which leads me to Lainne, tell everybody how they can reach you, where they can find you.
It's so easy to find me. You can just go to lainne.com. That's lainne.com. And you can find me on social media or LinkedIn at Lainne Love, LAINNELOVE.
And we're going to make sure we put that on all of our information. We'll put it in the show notes for everybody can find. So if you're listening to us and you can't write that down, just go back and read over the show notes and you get all the information. But I just want to thank you so much for coming on today, Lainne. I want to thank you for helping us to, step into understanding that, it is our mission to live a life of loving ourselves, to step into that, conversation with ourselves about what is the legacy of love that we are leaving and to self-activate it. We have to self-activate our love for ourselves. And I want to thank you so much for that conversation today.
Thank you so much for having
You're
me. Yeah,
welcome.
and thanks for leading or closing with that
Oh
because
no,
you matter.
Yeah.
You matter.
You
Every person matters. You matter, and who you are and how you show up and the choices you make really, really matter.
It
So,
does. So now
yeah.
before we let you go, we can't let you go without doing our cards. So rem
Yes, I'm
so
excited.
yes, so if you're new to the show, we have these amazing cards. They're called Better Question, Better Life. My friend Carol and her friend Diane put them together. I get no paid back, so if you wanna go to betterquestionsbetterlife.com, you can get them. But they're like this is a deck of cards. There's a ton of different motivation words, questions, that will help you journal, just start your day off, whatever that might be. So you tell me when to stop shuffling and we'll find out what your card says.
Okay. Stop.
All right. So your card says, how can I experience joy? So how do you experience joy? But it's so funny. I have to say,
Yes.
oftentimes the cards that come up, that's a whole, universe thing. They often have to do with what we're talking about today. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that for you.
I didn't realize I was so controlling. And I am so would never be anything that I would ever expect, or a way that I would describe myself. I would never expect that I would be a controlling person. And when you try to be controlling, you totally snuff out joy. And so the more that I have that relationship with myself about controlling, the more I leave room for joy, because joy is in being in the moment. Joy is being playful. Joy is being expressive. Um, Joy is being creative, and all of those things happen, outside of the boundaries. And so I love that. I love that I'm able to notice that about myself, have that conversation with myself, and then explore it. And it is just perfect that it came, because I'm fostering a puppy, and I am noticing, how important boundaries are, and teaching this puppy, but how you can have boundaries and also come with enthusiasm and love. So how do you infuse of boundaries and joy? And actually, they quite naturally happen if you let them, if you don't try to then become controlling. And so I am really enjoying exploring that relationship right now.
What a great example of that. That is such a great example to walk us through. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I love that you walk that through us. For me, experiencing joy is like making the time for myself and, really understanding, again, back to boundaries, as you said, making sure I keep my boundaries of, don't let myself drift back into people pleasing, pull myself back, and give myself that time and space. So thank you for reminding us about boundaries and all of that. And so I just want to thank you again for coming on. And those that are listening, I want to remind you that as you come into this world, you are this tough oyster on the outside. You have a lot of work to do to start leading and living leading your love of legacy for yourself. But inside, as you do that tough work, you're going to find your own inner pearly greatness. And I hope today you had a great time listening to us and you start doing your legacy of love for yourself. And I want to, oh my gosh, that was so much fun, Lainne. Thank you again for joining us. And she brought up a lot there, especially around the word shiro. Honestly, we did not go in that together to set that up or anything, but I wanted to just step in and remind you guys, like, what are you doing today to leave that legacy of love for yourself? We love our family, we love our friends, we love our kids, but what are you truly doing to love yourself? And if you're not sure where that all starts for you, or how you figure that out, down below, you can click and download our free ebook on 5 ways to find harmony in your life. And just take some time and read that, learn some tips and things to do to talk to yourself, to set time for yourself, because you are important and you matter. And I just hope that today you understand that Shiro we talked about is you. You are amazing. You are strong. You are happy. You are empowered. You are a radiant and original self that deserves to start pouring into your own legacy. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed the show.